So what is going on, everyone? Fernando Silva here with another video, and today we got another review video. So I think this is episode 4 of the iPad kind of reviews, I guess, series that we're creating here. And I saw that Jon Rettinger, I think that's how you say his last name, I'm not 100% sure, but I've been following him for a very, very long time. And he came out with a video called, Is the iPad Still Worth It Today? So the M1 iPad Pro review. His review is 16 minutes long. Let's see how far we get through it. I'll probably listen to it at 1.25 speed, just so we can get through it. But I've been following him literally since his Techno Buffalo days. So if you guys aren't aware of Techno Buffalo, he had a tech site that he was running and ended up selling it and things like that. And then he just started to go full-time into videos, and I'm so happy that he did because his videos are freaking awesome. Big into like the storytelling aspect on the tech side, so very, very cool. But without further ado, let's jump into this video. I haven't watched it yet, so this is going to be the initial reaction. Let's get into it.
So it's been a few months since the 2021 iPad Pros came out. And the iPad Pro, aside from my phone, is a device that I use every single day.
I 100% second that. I use my iPad Pro every single day.
I can appreciate it for what it does. But now we're kind of 3 generations into this new design of the iPad Pro. I've got kind of a love and hate relationship with it, and I kind of think I gotta split this one up.
That was pretty cool. I thought he was about to go like Super Saiyan on us or something.
I caught it. See, I can be cool too. Before I get into the video, I do want to take a second to thank our sponsor, Koei, and they're pretty awesome. So when you're done like making up excuses for the 2021 iPad Pro, come talk to me. I'll tell you what you really need to know. So obviously there's other new and pretty awesome things about it too. I think
So that's what kind of Jon does. He's big into how he tells the story about his tech products and what he's reviewing. But I'm the same way. I'm pretty biased towards iPad Pro because I've like forced myself to learn how to use it as my computer, and it's definitely doable depending on what you're doing. But I definitely skew the way I talk about the iPad Pro a little bit just because I use it every day, right? And I like to think about it positively, but that's just my take.
The biggest ones for me, and I think one of the reasons people would upgrade to this, is the ability to watch HDR content and have it sort of do the entire HDR workflow. So 1 month later, this is where I'm noticing the difference with the 21 versus the 2020, and even the still awesome 2018 iPad Pro. HDR content looks really good on this. But I will say, after watching a lot of HDR content, you kind of get used to how good it looks, and you forget what it looked like on the 20 and the 18. Having said,
so I actually mentioned that in one of my last videos, and I actually collabed with another creator named Alex, where I mentioned this, where it's like, my 2018 iPad Pro was more than enough compared to this M1 iPad Pro that I'm currently using. And the only reason why I actually stayed with the upgrade is because of the channel, right? At that point, it's like, I run an iPad channel, I should have the latest one just so I can kind of test it and figure out what's going on. But the 2018 one, if I wasn't running this channel, I would just hold on to it because there'd be no need to upgrade, like literally no need. The only big thing that I saw difference-wise is obviously the mini LED screen, which is awesome, but at the same time, like Jon said, you get used to it so quickly that you kind of forget, and you wouldn't really notice that if you stayed with the 2018 iPad Pro.
All of that. Past couple years iPad Pros, it could kind of show HDR content, but it was like more or less just extended dynamic range. One of the really nice things, again, about the 12.9 2021 is that it's got the full brightness level required to display full HDR color gamut. And when it's firing,
that's true. The brightness level on this iPad screen is pretty crazy. Like, you can, in direct sunlight, pretty much no problem.
It still looks really nice. And I know there's some people out there who have been experiencing some pretty bad blooming effects on the Big Daddy iPad Pro. I've seen those videos. I can sympathize with those people. I have not had those issues, so I can't speak to them. But certainly if you're looking to buy one, be aware of them and know that you may fall in that camp that could happen.
That blooming situation, first of all, it came and went so fast. Like, people freaked out about it and then forgot about it. But the only time that you see any blooming is if you are on like max brightness and you're on a black canvas with white ink. That is the only time I've seen any real blooming. But at the same time, when are you ever in a situation like that? Especially, you see the blooming even more so when you're in a darkly lit room and the brightness is all the way turned up. But when you're in a darkly lit room, your brightness is not going to be turned all the way up because it's adjusting to the ambient light around you. You know, even if you want to force it, it's probably not good for you to have max brightness in a very dark room.
So, I mean, it's a big old screen, right? The screen looks amazing, and I haven't found much reason to really fault it. Not even the 11-inch version that still uses the kind of traditional backlit LCD and not OLED or mini LED. Even that still looks great. So as I got to about a year later on my 2020 12.9 iPad Pro, battery life started to die down a little bit for me. I became very aware that battery life wasn't as good as it was when I first got it. But 1 month later, with the new version, battery life is still really awesome. Despite having the mini LED tech and having a ton of pixels being pushed, battery life is as good now as it was when I first unboxed it. So hopefully it will stay that way. When I am watching HDR content, if I do it for extended periods, you will see a little bit of a battery drain, but it's nothing drastic. If I'm watching maybe an hour show, it probably equates to maybe 4 to 6% extra battery drain.
Yeah, when it comes to battery life for me, I've been running the beta program and I kind of really put it through its paces. I've been getting like 4 to 5 hours of screen on time. So it's kind of tough, but you also got to figure out like what apps are using up all that battery. Like for me, LumaFusion takes up and Affinity Photo take up so much battery power, but if I'm just surfing Safari, I can probably push 10 hours out of it.
So it's got a Thunderbolt port, which for a lot of people is awesome. Up to 40 gigabits per second throughput, which is insane for a tablet. Also means you can do a lot of photo editing on the iPad and batch import photos faster than ever, which for a lot of folks is an unbelievable, awesome reason to upgrade to the new iPad Pro. Speaking of photos, Lightroom and Photoshop work great on both the new iPad Pro models. So the combination of either the 8 or 16 gigabytes of RAM, depending on which model you pick up. I have the 16 gigabytes in mind. We did test it though with an 11-inch that has the 8 gigabytes of RAM. Both breeze for absolutely any sort of edit you could want, no matter the amount of layers that you threw at it. That also means things you'd expect iPad to be good at, it is good at, like multitasking. It's super snappy, right?
Yeah, that's another thing. The RAM did help out with multitasking. I did notice that with my 2018 iPad Pro, if you're running like an intense game, like I used to play NBA 2K a lot, I still kind of do, especially from the new Apple Arcade store, so I would play it on the 2018 iPad, and when I would play the game and then leave to go do something else, and if I was in the middle of an actual game where I just press pause, it would reset the app. You know, the RAM wouldn't be able to handle it, it would reset the app, and I would have to start that entire game over. Even if there was like 3 seconds left in the fourth quarter, I would have to replay that entire game. Versus on the M1, that has never happened. So, and I have the 8 gigabyte version in terms of RAM. Like I got the baseline model M1, and the 8 gigs of RAM does help with, again, RAM management, being able to keep those applications open as long as possible, and things like that. So I can imagine the 16 gig version is going to be even better at that point.
Expect that. No matter how many programs I had in my multitasking window, whether they were really graphically intense programs or not, there's no issues here. No issues whatsoever with multitasking.
No issues.
But again, that was also true on the 2020 iPad Pro, and that was true on the 2018 iPad Pro. So nothing new. It hasn't gotten hugely better, but it most definitely has not gotten worse. So aside from the mini LED that made its way only to the 12.9-inch iPad Pro, Center Stage made its way to both sizes of the 2021 iPad Pro, and that's when kind of as you move, the camera is going to appear to move with you. Listen, I don't want to make a feature that's new that people might use. I don't want to make fun of it. But this is a feature that I've inadvertently been doing on my laptops for years and didn't even realize it. So no need for an ultra-wide camera here, only using the magic of like your arms. I mean, listen, if that's something that's important to you, it does work as advertised. It means absolutely zero to me. It's only available on the new iPad Pros when you're on a FaceTime call or others.
Yeah, Center Stage, it definitely works as advertised, but I haven't really used it. Or like, it hasn't made my FaceTimes better, if that makes any sense. Like, it's a cool feature, and like, yeah, it's cool that you get more viewing angles and it moves around and like catches other people's faces and things like that. But overall, FaceTime is still just FaceTime.
For apps, it works. It's awesome to see it work. It's just not something that I've been using.
I fully agree.
And all these things I'm saying about the iPad Pro, they might seem like small little changes, and maybe they are. And I think that's because the 2018 12.9-inch iPad Pro was so good. It was so strong at absolutely everything that it's just been small updates since then. This iPad Pro I use, again, every single day. And it's mostly for media consumption. With the 2020 iPad Pro, when I bought the Magic Keyboard, I tried to pretend it was a computer and use it like a computer, and I did for a few months, and it worked, but ultimately for my workflow I was better off just having an actual real computer. But mostly,
I love how he put that. He was like, I tried to pretend that it was like a full computer. Yeah, I guess it just depends on your workflow and what you're used to doing and how quickly you can do that, and time management and efficiency gains and things like that. I just the fun of using the iPad more so than like a MacBook Air, MacBook Pro, or whatever the case may be, just supersedes everything, and that's kind of why I've stuck with the iPad. It's just more fun to use.
I am watching videos with my wife at night. We're on season 3 of This Is Us, and it's always being watched on the iPad. In the morning, I'm checking emails on it. I'm replying to emails on it. I'm checking stocks, crypto on it. It's mostly just been sort of passive for me on how I use it.
Ted Lasso.
But when I do need to do some power things on it, I like knowing that it's there. I love the iPad Pro. It is probably my favorite bit of technology, and what it can do and what it can enable, it does seem like a magic window. It just isn't much more magic than the magic window that came out a few years ago. So I mean, I'm sitting here telling you that to me it's not a computer, but perhaps the best person to talk about the things that this iPad Pro is not is Anti-Jon. So I'm gonna come back together as one Jon for a second.
Dang, I would have loved to be in this video with him and kind of like walk through my workflow a little bit and talked about that and how like I'm able to use it fully no matter what. And the idea for me, like I mentioned before, like iPad Pro made computer, MacBook Air my supplemental computer for my iPad Pro.
So there are two things that every human being needs to survive. It is food and it is potable water. And to help make sure the water you are drinking is as pure and healthy for you as possible, the folks at Koei have their Aqua Mega 100 filtration system and your family. So setting up messy is huge potential for error, easy. Plus, if you have any water concerns where you home, so now when anyone wants to drink of water, we're just going to use this. This
Look at that paper, Jon.
Electricity, so no power necessary, and replacing the filters is $49.
That's a cool water filter.
So this is some real talk. Under no circumstance, 0.0 circumstances, should you buy hardware based on the promise of future software. And there's no better example than Tesla. And I am a chump of chumps. I bought the full self-driving package on my previous car that was about 4 years ago, and I got nothing. And then I got a new car last year. I'm like, you know what? This is the time. I'm going to shell out the money for full self-driving because it's coming next week.
No way.
Next week is now like 13 months later, and I still don't even have access to the beta software. And I know that's Tesla, it's Apple, but it's the same idea. Don't ever buy something on what could come. And when it comes to the iPad Pro, in all fairness, Apple never promised things that were going to come. Apple never promised Pro apps. Apple never promised that it was going to be able to run Mac OS. Kind of we led that hype train. They never said it, but I guess foolishly I kind of still believed it, or at least hoped that it was going to come.
I mean, I fully believed it too. And my hope with the M1 wasn't really about pro-level apps because there's already like super powerful applications on the iPad Pro, right? Affinity Photo, that's what I use for thumbnails. LumaFusion, that's my Final Cut Pro alternative. So when Apple was like, hey, the M1's coming, I thought we were going to get some like pro-level multitasking or some semblance of a desktop-level multitasking. And as we all know,
we heard all this before the announcement of iPadOS 15, which, you know, was obviously a few months ago. The hype was going high. This is the year, ladies and gentlemen, that we finally get true pro apps on the iPad. Maybe we'll get a form of Mac OS. It's going to be amazing. We're going to be able with Final Cut on the iPad Pro. The rumors were all but confirmed when we heard the M1 chip was going to make its way into said iPad Pro. There was no way, zero way, it was not going to happen that Apple was not finally going to make this the dream machine that I think a lot of us have been hoping for. But we got widgets we can move around. That was one of the big ones.
Which we already forgot about. Like the widgets thing was the biggest blunder that Apple gave us because it was like they tried to hype it up like it was something new, but it was identical to what iOS 14 was already doing, and it was just kind of like a no-brainer for them and a way for them to very cheaply say we did something new.
With iPadOS 15. Don't get me wrong. I'm pro widgets.
And I miss my Today View. Like I would rather still have my Today View versus being able to move widgets around. But give us both. I want my Today View.
I'm in the pro widget camps. They're helpful. They're useful. But I don't think it was the killer feature everybody was waiting for. In fact, I haven't even installed the beta of iPadOS 15 on my iPad because honestly hasn't been worth it. There's nothing on it that I really want to try that badly that I want to risk, just bricking the thing. I promised you guys I was going to be the real Jon, the realist version of it. And listen, I wanted Final Cut on the iPad, but maybe my head was so far up my creator butt that I couldn't realize that maybe I'm in a minority of people who want Final Cut on the iPad because of what I do for a living. I would assume that Apple has done a lot of focus groups and a ton of research on what's going to get people to buy iPads, and clearly it is not pro apps on an iPad. So perhaps I will remove my head from my rear section and realize that the iPad that we've got with the iPadOS that's coming is clearly all that Apple is going to make the iPad be and do. And again, they never promised it was going to do anything else. We just kind of hoped. Outside of the creative stuff I was hoping for, I think people were generally excited for multi-user support, right? You and your wife or your girlfriend, your friend.
Yeah, because these things, especially once you get to the M1 12.9-inch iPad Pro, $1,100, that's a laptop. And guess what? On a laptop, you can put 18 different users if you want. If you have a giant family and you want to split one laptop for $1,000, you can do that. But with these iPads, you get a baseline iPad, the MacBook Air, the $130 Apple Pencil. That's a $1,500 computer that you can only use by yourself with your accounts and your emails and your things, right? You should be able to break it up, partition it, like have different users. But we will continue to wish.
Log in with their face, have their own home screens, and most importantly, and I don't want to undersell it, their own ability to not only make their own widgets, but also move those widgets anywhere they want on their home screen. So I want to be clear, I've tried it, I've tried to make it one. For me, the iPad is not a computer. No matter how much anyone wants to say it is, no matter how much...
I'm disagreeing with you, John. It is a freaking computer. I'm telling you it's a computer. Just not the computer for everybody.
Is not a computer. And for less money than I paid for my iPad, you can get a really nice M1 MacBook Air that does pretty much all the same stuff, but more in a computer way. And I tried to use the iPad again like a computer. Got the Magic Keyboard, I shelled out the money for it. I'm like, maybe this is the year that it can become a computer for me. And a month into it, I'm realizing it's just an iPad. And I'm changing everything that I want to do to suit the iPad instead of just using a laptop that does.
So that's what I've done. I've done everything that I can to put my workflow around the iPad just because I like it so much. Because at the end of the day, yeah, if somebody asks me, they're like, hey, should I get a MacBook? Should I get an iPad? Like, I'm a student, or I need one computer to do everything, or, I'm making a big purchase, but I can only have one of them. I'm going to steer somebody to the MacBook Air because it's familiar, it's honestly cheaper, just like John said. It comes with a built-in keyboard and trackpad already. Yeah, it doesn't have the touchscreen. Yeah, it's more of the classic form factor and things like that. But at the end of the day, it's a $900 MacBook Air, which, especially with the M1 chip, can handle anything you throw at it. Like, again, I also use a MacBook Air to supplement my iPad Pro, but I've thrown like 30 different PowerPoints open at the same time. Like, use Microsoft Suite products on the MacBook Air, and it works perfectly. And I got it for $900 through the education store, the baseline model. So, yeah, I would recommend that people, if they only have one choice to make, go with the MacBook Air, at least for now.
Things the way I expect it to do. And speaking of keyboards, I have the previous generation Magic Keyboard, so the one that came out with the 2020 iPad Pro. And despite what Apple is going to tell you, it will work with the 2021 iPad Pro, and it will fit with the new 2021 iPad Pro, albeit...
Yeah, I have the 2018 Magic Keyboard or whatever, whenever it came out, I guess 2020, and it works fine with my 2021 iPad Pro.
But it's like perfect enough, and it works. You don't have to spend the extra $350 for a new keyboard. So yeah, the HDR experience is great. And if you are watching a ton of HDR content, then by all means, get the new one. You're going to be super happy.
I'll be honest, I don't even know if I watch HDR content on this thing. I guess Disney Plus, if I watch Disney Plus, which I do, some of it is, but I don't go out of my way to watch HDR content on here.
But again, since I'm the honest one here, a few months later, the luster is worn off of the newness of the screen. And I'm kind of left thinking, this doesn't do that much different or anything that much faster than my 2018 iPad Pro did or does. That device, so good, and again, so far ahead of its time, and it left so much headroom that the 2020 and now the 2021 iPad Pros are just kind of filling in very small gaps above it. This whole good and negative thing was fun, but I feel like the ultimate story with the iPad comes down to how you use it and what you perceive it's going to be and do. The 2021 iPad Pro for me was the realization that Apple is going to make this the best iPad that it can be, but is very much going to stay in an iPad lane. And that's okay. It's going to be awesome for watching movies, great for road trips, awesome for traveling and being on airplanes. All of those things it's perfect at. If you want to send emails, maybe you want to edit some photos, you want to utilize the pencil, the iPad is going to be a perfect choice for you. But if you're expecting it to be more than that, if you're expecting it to do everything your computer can do, ultimately you're going to be disappointed. If you're expecting it to be a pro device, despite having a pro in the name, you are going to be disappointed.
Whoa, John. I think pro level users will still be able to use the iPad Pro. You know who you are if you're a professional that needs an iPad Pro. But yeah, don't expect it to be like a Windows 10 or Mac OS and have 18 different PowerPoints and 3 different Excels and manipulating data, because you just need a real secondary monitor support and not just a mirror and not just a letterbox, secondary monitor. You need more screen real estate to get more done. And that to me is the biggest detriment to iPad OS, the lack of support for secondary monitors. That's what it is.
I'm looking at the new iPad Pro, the 2021s, with the realization, maybe a bit of sadness, that this is the best the iPads are going to get. And I'm no longer expecting new things that Apple may or may not give. I am living now and in the moment. And in this moment, if you have a 2020 iPad Pro or you have a 2018 iPad Pro, hold on to those bad boys. Do not shell out the dough for the 2021 unless you need the screen or you're traveling like crazy and you need 5G built in. Otherwise, just tether from your phone. Those devices were so good, and this one adds slightly bit more that it's really hard to justify. If you don't have an iPad and maybe you want to get one, you want to go into the world of iPad Proing, I'd still recommend picking up a used 2018 or 2020, but if you want to buy a new one, you're going to get the best version of the iPad that Apple has ever made with the best screen. And I know I joked about some of the camera features, but they're there and they work. And quite frankly, they work really well and they work as advertised. Just don't expect it to do more than Apple tells you it can do.
So that is that entire video. Like I said, it was going to be a long one, but for the most part, like, I agree with what Jon is saying. And first off, Jon is a freaking man. I love his videos, love his channel, love everything that he's doing. Like, even his thumbnails are awesome. And I know that he's like the founder of Apple Circle too, so he's killing it. He's a man. But yeah, to each their own is basically what he's saying. Like, I would also agree with him. I would recommend a MacBook Air versus an iPad Pro if you only have to choose one. But at the same time, there are people that use it for their entire workflow. And you know, I'm one of those people. Like, again, if I was just using YouTube, like, the iPad would be enough. I know Christopher Lawley, like, he only uses iPads, and he's got them everywhere. I think he just got a Mac Mini, but even that, he's not really using it for that. So there are people that use iPad Pros as their main and only computer. I think the iPad's a computer. It's just a different type of computer for a different type of user base, right? And that's pretty much what it is. And again, if you're in the market for a new computer and you want an iPad Pro really badly because it looks cool and it's more fun to use and less traditional in the sense of a laptop or a desktop, just make sure that all the stuff that you need works on the iPad Pro first before jumping in and going over a desktop or laptop solution. But that's my 2 cents on this. Again, shout out to Jon for that awesome video. I really enjoyed it. I know it's about a week old now at this point, so hopefully this video gets some more eyes on that video for Jon because he has no idea that I'm doing this. But that's going to do it for this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the reaction. Comment below some other iPad related videos that I should react to if you guys are enjoying this series, because this was fun. I enjoy watching this stuff with you guys, and I started getting this idea because I enjoyed watching like music reaction videos, and I figured, let me bring it over here. Maybe there's some people that want to watch these videos and kind of see my reaction to it. But that's going to do it for this video. Hope you guys enjoy the long weekend. Until next time.